So once again, thank you for joining us on today's Adobe session, Going Paperless with Adobe Sign. It's now my pleasure to turn the floor over to your first presenter, Sarah Linderman, Product Marketing with Adobe. Sarah, you have the floor.
Great, thanks, Phil. All right, I'm going to flip over and take us to our agenda for the day and just kind of give you a preview of what we're going to be covering. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Really excited to have you all here. So it's broken into a few sections. I'm going to start with a section I broadly call Going Paperless with Adobe Sign. And this is really a chance to set some context and talk about what does the business case look like for moving away from paper-based workflows and adopting digital workflows. What are the benefits of doing this? What are the benefits in particular of doing it with Adobe Sign? And we're also going to talk a lot about use cases and take a peek at where we find Sign to be a particularly powerful solution, whether you're a K-12 school or a higher education campus. And then we'll close that portion out with a look at how some of our current customers are using Sign. And then I'm going to flip over and introduce Dwayne Arruti, who I'm very excited to have on the call with us today. Dwayne is the CIO at the University of New Mexico, and he is going to be here and doing a short interview with us to help provide a glimpse into how they've been using the Sign solution on their campus, kind of taking a look at their journey with Adobe Sign. Then I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Dan Armstrong, for some demos. He's going to just kind of give you a peek at Adobe Sign in action so that you can have a look at what the console looks like, what the functionality looks like, and really what I like about this is it helps to show off how easy it is to use Sign. We'll wrap up, we'll point you towards some potential resources, and then we'll leave a nice chunk of time for Q&A so that you can put in any questions that you have for our team or especially for Dwayne out there and get them answered. All right, before I get started into the content, I just wanted to run a quick poll, and Phil will be pulling this up in a moment. It'd be great to get a sense of what our audience looks like. So who's here, and also would like to get a sense of what you're hoping to get out of the session. I'm just kind of watching these polls go. It's kind of mesmerizing when you watch the blue bars move up and down. Great. So we have a nice mix, a lot of IT admin, but also a lot of individuals from, it looks like from line of business represented, and I think that you're all going to be able to take value away from this session. And also as I just kind of look at what people are doing, you're at potentially various stages of the journey of going paperless. But again, I think that this, what we're going to be presenting today is going to have applicability across that full journey. So I'm excited to dig in. All right, here we go. So a quick reality check here. We've done a lot of research. We've worked with various research vendors to kind of get a handle on where people in higher education as well as K-12 sit when it comes to being reliant on paper-based versus digital document processes. And what we found is that nearly 80% of workflows on a typical campus or at a typical school, whether that be student-facing, staff-facing, vendor-facing workflows, they're paper-based. That's kind of crazy when you think about it. It's a pretty old school analog approach. It involves printing things out, signing them, scanning them, emailing them, and it all adds up to a fairly archaic and pretty inefficient process. It's also just, it involves so many steps. It's complicated, it's complex, it's slow, and it has a lot of pain points for anyone who's involved with or touching those workflows. It means that there's so much time spent doing admin work instead of doing all the other things that need attention and care within a school. That's pretty frustrating. The good news is if you're able to move away from that and go paperless, you are able to help address some of the big pain points that we see with this. So thinking about those pain points, we see that about 30% of staff time right now is spent on manual processing. So that includes document routing, signing approvals, spending time tracking down where things are in that process, archiving them. It's a whole bunch of time. It's also something that's pretty error prone because of all the chances to have error when you're working with paper, right? When we look at it, over a third of staff leadership claim to have problems with errors in that process. That could be things like missing signatures, that could be initials that aren't there, dates that aren't there, or that information is erroneous. It could even be that it gets signed by the wrong person, in which case you would really have to go back to the beginning and start that entire process over again. We also see things getting lost or even misplaced, right? So it never even happens at all. And 63% of staff end up indicating that this gap in automation creates a really unsatisfying experience for them. It's just not fun. So what happens when you go paperless? You save time, you save money, and you save a whole lot of headaches. So think about it this way. For each transaction, that's one document that's going out for a signature or multiple signatures. A school can save an average of about 1.5 labor hours by digitizing that form. And when you reduce the time spent on correcting those errors, you can reduce your overall processing time by around 96%. That's going to mean that this process is smoother and better, whether you're on the administrative side of it or you're on the signing side of it. When you add up these hard and soft costs, it means that you can realize an average savings of around $6 per transaction, which is really significant. And one way to just make that number feel even bigger is, think about having 20,000 forms. For every 20,000 forms you take digital, you can save around $120,000 and over 30,000 labor hours, which is really incredible. And that can make a really big impact in any sort of educational environment where we know, budgets are always a concern. Budgets are always being squeezed. Funding is always an uncertainty. So it's a great chance to make things more efficient and save a lot of money at your school. A particular aspect that I find really compelling is also the environmental impact you can have by going paperless. You think about getting rid of all that paper. It means you're getting rid of printers, you're getting rid of ink, you're getting rid of technology, again, getting rid of the paper. So for every 20,000 forms, again, using that same number that you transition to digital, you can save over 1,000 gallons of water. You can save over 500 pounds of wood. You're saving over 84 pounds of waste. You're having a massive impact on your carbon emissions. And I think this is a really nice story to be able to tell for any institution that is really trying to be a better partner with the environment, which is obviously very top of mind right now. So what is Adobe Sign exactly and how it works? Now I'm guessing since you're here at this webinar, you already have a good idea of what Adobe Sign is. You might have even started a trial or taken a look at it or been playing around online and kind of taking a peek at its functionality. Really, in the most simple form, it's an electronic signature service. So it's something that you can use to help streamline, simplify, and provide an added layer of security with any workflow that involves gathering information and gathering signatures. It's a great experience for the people who are on the admin side and actually have to manage all of this paperwork. But it's also a really excellent experience for anyone who's on the user side of things because they can easily have access to anything they need to sign from anywhere on their own time. They can use phones, they can use tablets. It's always going to be a simple, easy process. But something that's not on this slide that I think is really important to highlight is that Adobe Sign isn't just about signatures and signing. It's really about digitizing that entire workflow. So it gets involved in the document creation. It's about collaboration with peers to work on those documents. It's about the execution. And I think there's a whole lot of benefit when it comes to the tracking and archiving because of the visibility that it gives you to the process. And especially important for educational institutions, I think, is the security aspect. We all know that security and compliance with student data is very important. And by using Adobe Sign, you can keep all of the student data secure and protected. And it also makes the related data really easily discoverable. It's certainly easier to be able to track down information that's in some sort of signed document digitally than having to go through a bunch of file cabinets or dig around in boxes to find something. So getting into those details just a little bit more, you can kind of see some of the different aspects explained on this slide, from preparing documents to signature to how you can work with it and integrate it. So just pointing out a few of these different things. I think preparing documents for signature with Adobe Sign is a great experience. You can quickly take any sort of paper form, or you can take a Microsoft Office document, another PDF that you might be working with, and you can use Adobe Sign to turn it into a fillable, signable form. And it's easy to do that. And Dan will be touching a little bit on that and showing you how that works. Of course, you can send them out with for e-signature. It's really just as easy as kind of a single click. You're obviously able to create customized workflows so you can indicate who needs to sign. You can indicate the order of signature. You're able to manage all of that. And then, of course, your recipients that are involved in that chain can sign them from anywhere just using a web browser. The documents are protected with these really strict security measures, just hitting that point one more time that I talked about previously. And then they can be accessed and tracked and managed from anywhere in real time. One final point to make here is just kind of the integrations. Adobe Sign is built to integrate with other systems that you might be using on your campus. And I think this is important because there's obviously the concern about bringing in a new solution. How is it going to be fitting in and working with the solutions that you're already using from a productivity standpoint on your campus? This isn't going to be clunky. It's not going to be challenging, especially if you're a Microsoft campus and are using any of their applications. We're their premier partner for e-signatures, so it's really easy to plug and play in that type of environment. And it's something we're working on improving too as it pertains to things like SIS systems and other types of IT integrations that we know are really critical in an educational environment. Let's talk now about where you can use Adobe Sign. It looks like one more click. There we go. All right. So Adobe Sign is a solution that is really built to support workflows across your entire campus or throughout your entire school. It works really nicely for operational workflows, which you know are super high volume probably for a lot of you, vendor agreements, staff management needs that you might have like onboarding forms, if you're in higher education, academic research submissions, all of that covered by Adobe Sign. It's also really valuable for student and alumni-facing workflows, course management, if you're in higher education, donor forms. If you think about K-12, especially with the remote operating environment that we're in, if you're shifting over to a one-on-one device environment and you have a lot of paperwork associated with sign-offs on that, it's great for that. We hear a lot of our clients talk about using it for IEP and 504 forms, which can be really arduous to get signed and routed. Great solution for covering that. So when you think about it, Adobe Sign is really, it's a better experience for the entire community within a school or on campus, really all the way around. Taking a look at why we think Sign is such a powerful solution within education, there's kind of 5 different points that we'd like to touch on. And I think the first one is the fact that we've been working in education for so long. We have over 20 years of partnership within the education space. We understand how education works. We understand the differences of working in education versus like an enterprise type of setting. And we're set up to help support you through that. We really do pride ourselves on the guidance and the expertise that we provide in helping you understand how to use this and guiding you through the implementation process as well, making sure that you have the training, the resources you need to get Sign up and running quickly and effectively on your campus or in your school. And just a quick note there, and I'll make note of this again at the end of this webinar, is that on April 14th, we're going to be hosting another webinar that's going to be specifically focused on implementation. So we'll be kind of like walking through and giving you a preview of what it looks like to go through that onboarding process. The second point to make is just the Sign product's ease of use. It's easy for the sender, it's easy for the signer, and that's something that Dan is going to be able to highlight and bring to life when he goes through the demos. The third point to hit on is the integration. So as I mentioned before, we're the preferred partner for e-signatures by Microsoft, and we worked really hard to develop top-rated integrations and APIs throughout the different systems that you might be working with, whether they're procurement or legal or HR systems that you have already up and running in your school or on your campus. And again, another plug for a webinar that's going to be really relevant to that. On March 10th, we're going to be hosting a webinar that goes and does a deep dive into the integrations world. A couple other points to cover off on. The intuitive workflow control, so this kind of like end-to-end workflow, and the fact that we have this really easy drag and drop template creation. anyone in your environment, your faculty, your staff, your administrators are going to be able to use the visual design tools we have to really quickly build and test the workflows. They don't need to have coding. They don't need to have technical experience. Anyone at your institution is going to be able to tailor and automate those workflows without needing to be a technical expert. And then final point here is just the compliance standards. They're unsurpassed. They're super rigorous. Adobe Sign meets the highest levels of global security and compliance requirements worldwide. We're using the same technologies, the same engineering processes that are relied on by financial institutions, governments, and of course, educational institutions all around the world. Here you can see some of our leading Adobe Sign customers. It's all the reasons that I've been speaking to that these organizations you see here, including IU, Johns Hopkins, Duke, Texas Tech, have chosen to work with Adobe Sign. Right. And now I'm going to click through and show you some deeper examples and take a look at some examples of other universities that are using Adobe Sign and how it's been a successful solution for them. And the first one I'm going to bring up is not Iowa State. Sorry, I'm having a slide issue here. There we go. Let it populate. Okay. So let's spend a moment talking about San Diego State. They've worked really hard to transition over to become a paperless campus. They're using Sign in a bunch of ways. They're using it for student-facing processes like add drop form management. They're also using it for HR processes like faculty onboarding. And they have seen a really dramatic impact, and they have been able to quantify some of the results that have come out of using Sign. They estimate that the forms completed using Sign actually take 93% less time. That's pretty massive. Their travel approval process is one thing that they've been running through Sign. They think that is taking around 96% less time. So across its campus, you can see that San Diego State has partnered with Sign really to create these workflows that are much more efficient and provide a substantially better experience for the students and the staff. Iowa State is an example that I'd like to touch on because it shows off another use case. They've really modernized their donor experience by using Adobe Sign. Previously this was obviously all based on hard copies. It was a lot of printing out paper, sticking it in envelopes, a lot of like running it around to various people to get the distribution and the delivery and the wet signatures. So by getting rid of all of that paper-based work, they have been able to expedite the average donor cycle by 13 days. And this has also helped them save a lot of money. The cost of managing this workflow is 30% less with Adobe Sign due to savings in printing and labor and paper, some of the things that we pointed out before. And just kind of speaking to that user experience, the staff really appreciate this new way of working, partially due to some of the Microsoft Solutions integration, just to pull that part of the story in here. It makes it really intuitive and really easy for them to move to this new digital process because they don't have to move out of the environment that they were already working in. I have just one more example, and that's going to be a lead-in to our conversation with Dwayne. I'm just going to do a brief moment of setup talking about the University of New Mexico. Now, we've had a long-term partnership with the University of New Mexico, and it came out and has been focused on a lot of the creative cloud apps that we have. But then they started looking for some operational efficiencies on their campus, and when they plunged into that space, they realized that Sign could actually be a really transformative solution for them. So they're now using Sign, and they're using it in departments, again, all across their campus. Admissions, tuition processing, procurement, HR, they've taken it into the healthcare center. So they're always looking for and finding new ops, and because of that, being able to bring continuous improvements to the way that they manage their workflows. Something else that's been really beneficial to them has just been, looking right now in the pandemic time, unfortunately, with all the restrictions that it's posed. By bringing in these paperless flows, they've been able to keep the campus running safely throughout the pandemic and all of its shifts. And then when you sum these things up, it's really just a story about operational efficiency. So cost savings, time savings, everything across the campus. And with that, I'm going to introduce Dwayne so that we can dig into this a little bit more and really hear directly how this journey has worked from him. So Dwayne, hello. Introduce yourself, and then I'm going to set us up and ask you a few questions to help guide this portion of the presentation.
All right, great, Sarah. Thank you so much. And everyone, it's a pleasure to talk with you this morning, afternoon, depending on what time zone you happen to be in. My name is Dwayne Arruti. I am the Chief Information Officer for the University of New Mexico. We are the flagship institution in the state of New Mexico, top-tier research. We have a hospital, a health science center, 4 branch campuses. I've been at the university for 25 years. I like to say I'm in my 3rd career here. I started in finance, worked in HR for a period of time, always heavily focused on technology. And I've been in IT now specifically for about 10 years, been the CIO for the last 4 years. And so I'm happy to chat with you about our Adobe Sign journey.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. So I think a good place to start is, you know, as I mentioned when I set this up, Dwayne, we know that University of New Mexico has been using various Adobe Creative Solutions on campus for a while, and I'm just curious, can you talk to us a bit about the decision to broaden your partnership with Adobe and to introduce Sign, which is a different type of tool? And while you're answering this, it would be great to hear about your choice to go with Sign over other solutions, because I know that we're getting some questions about how Sign compares to DocuSign in particular. So if you're able to touch on that at all, it'd be great to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of coincided with our decision to become an Adobe Creative Campus. As you've mentioned, Sarah, and just for the group to understand, we've used Adobe products on our campus for many, many years. In fact, we actually manage a statewide contract for higher education institutes in New Mexico. So we had a lot of familiarity with the Adobe products and a lot of utilization on campus already. We had made a decision in 2019 to move forward to become a creative campus, and it involved a lot of conversations with faculty, staff, and students where we garnered tremendous support to really leverage the Creative Cloud suite of tools. Our Adobe account manager, who I've worked with closely for many years, had constantly shared information on the evolution of the Adobe Sign product, and really things aligned at the right time as we were moving forward to become a creative campus. The opportunity to include Adobe Sign as a part of that agreement just manifested. And it, you know, coincided also with a tremendous amount of requests that we were receiving from departments all over campus for document digitization solutions, where we were exceeding our previous allotment for our previous product. So the right pricing came together with the right opportunity for a tool that folks were already very familiar with, just in terms of adoption of Adobe products on our campus. So it really all just happened at the right time.
Okay, great. And it's okay, Dwayne, if I'm just curious because I see the question coming through, and you might be able to speak to this a little bit. You know, based on what you do know about competitors like DocuSign, do you have any thoughts on the functionality or the difference between our product and their product? And in my opinion, I think the reality is they can do a lot of the same things. I think it's just a different level of support that you get through Adobe. I don't know if you're able to expand on that at all.
Yeah, I can't really speak to the specific differences in, you know, the use or the implementation of the two tools. What I can tell you is, because we were such heavy Adobe users already, you know, we had many folks that were already familiar, as most campuses and institutions are, that it was a pretty seamless transition. There were some concerns raised by folks that were heavy DocuSign users that it might be more complicated or confusing. And what we did is we reached out to Adobe, to the Adobe team, and we had them do some specific presentations with key users to show them how the Adobe Sign product had evolved And that immediately addressed their concerns, and it's been a pretty seamless transition since.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk about how you decided to, where to implement Sign in the first place. So what is kind of like the migration and growth looked for you? Like, how do you go about determining where to start in terms of use cases, and then how to identify new potential use cases?
Yeah, that's a great question. So because we were transitioning and the primary area that we had been using another solution was in our purchasing arena, that was our initial focus. So we really focused on a pilot of using Sign with our procurement office. And that was very successful. It was a pretty easy transition. And from there, the approach that we took was we reached out to the departments that had previously been heavy users of our other tool, and we started working with them directly to help that transition take place. And then ultimately what we did is we opened it up campus-wide. We have a resource page that I think you're going to share later that shows how our departments can request access to be able to initiate workflow documents themselves and how that intake process works. So we did the tried and true, what we knew we had to take care of first, work out any kinks or any challenges, and then we just spread it out through the rest of our campus.
Great. It's interesting that you kind of marketed it the way that you have. Would you say that there's been a lot of interest? And I don't want to be too crazy and use the word excitement, but are people pretty excited to have access to this tool and to be able to use it and to bring it into their own department?
Yeah, and I think probably everyone on this call can appreciate that our timing just happened to be perfect, right? So we had teed this initiative up around the June timeframe of 2019. We didn't specifically start focusing on Adobe Sign until the fall of that year, but we got everything up and running just in time to deal with this pandemic. And so already we were seeing adoption, and with the pandemic, it just really enabled a remote work environment for our campus. And I think that's where we're seeing, even more usage than we would have ever anticipated.
Great. I'm guessing one question that people have on their minds too, especially as you're talking about getting it set and how the timing was perfect and everything, it can seem potentially like a kind of a big challenge to take something like Sign and get it implemented across the campus, particularly like whether you're working from a district perspective and trying to get it set up a bunch across of schools for K-12, or whether you're at a university and you're trying to push it across a lot of different departments and schools. Can you tell us a little bit about the implementation journey for you? How easy was it to get Sign up and running? What was the onboarding support like?
Yeah, it was, in terms of level of complexity of initiatives that our IT organization has taken on, I would say this was on the easier side of the equation. Again, Adobe teamed up with us, so we had good resources to assist. And then we worked just extensively with our departments who already had familiarity with the routing processes, and we just needed to convert over to the Adobe Sign methodology. So it was not a complex implementation. I guess the one area where I think we had more challenges than others is in a solution that we use to manage sponsored projects that had a native integration with another tool. So we kind of carved that one out as a separate initiative, and again, reached out to Adobe and that other vendor to establish a partnership to be able to integrate Adobe Sign. And that project is moving along well, and we expect it to be implemented here in the very near future.
Okay, that's good to hear, because that kind of touches on the integration point that we had before. So I think it's good for everyone to recognize that that's something that we understand, and something that we're set up to effectively address if that challenge comes up. Dwayne, let's talk about what Sign has done for you, just to put it kind of bluntly. What would you say is the impact it's created on campus? I pointed some of these out in the setup. Obviously, it's, it's efficiency, it's cost savings. But can you expand on some of those points and just talk about, the overall benefits and experience of using Sign?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's not a far stretch just to share with everyone that being able to route and manage your documents electronically, it's not a luxury, it's a necessity right now, right? We made a huge push on our campus to only have folks physically present on our campus that absolutely had to be here in order to help contain the spread on the pandemic. And, this was one of several tools in our arsenal that allowed us to do that effectively. Instead of having people, necessarily have to come touch paper, we can route those and folks can do them from their remote locations. So that's been absolutely key to our success. And I would say, it allows us to help to manage this pandemic a whole lot more effectively. To give you a sense of volume, we're seeing anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 Adobe Sign transactions completed end to end on a monthly basis. And it's kind of crazy when you start looking at the statistics, just in terms of what the turnaround time is from initial presentation to completion, regardless of the number of folks that it has to flow through in order to complete. We're actually seeing things get completed on average between 20 and 90 minutes. So that's beginning to end. We couldn't have even delivered that to other offices prior to using a solution like this. And so while we've got some major initiatives, so from expanding on our procurement utilization, obviously we have other needs, and human resources is a big one, where we are extensively using Adobe Sign to track and route personnel documents, again, which is extremely helpful in this day and age. We've also been able to apply it to some fairly unique situations. Admissions is so incredibly important right now, and it's obviously a huge drive for all higher education. And it's an area that, we had an outage that we had to do some work on some other systems, and our admissions app was going to be down. We were able to very quickly stand up an Adobe Sign form to continue our admissions processes during that brief outage. And so we had business continuity there. And it was a quick and easy thing for us to be able to do, and it was critical to our operations. So we have other examples like that where we've been able to stand things up fairly quickly to meet an immediate need. So there's a lot of flexibility that it's provided to us for that.
That's great. And I think that's, I think you said that on average, a lot of these workflows take around 20 to 90 minutes to complete end to end. Sounds pretty amazing, especially when you consider the volume of transactions that you cited. Do you have any idea what the benchmark you were up against? So if it's 20 to 90 minutes to complete with Sign, how long do you think a lot of those were taking on average when you were using kind of the traditional paper, the previous approach?
Yeah, no, and I loved the signs or the slides that you had for the other institutions that had that comparison. I don't have those at my fingertips, but I can tell you it's a substantial time savings for sure.
Awesome. All right, well, I'm going to wrap it up with just one last question for you. Since people that are on this call in our audience today is, potentially individuals who are thinking about bringing Sign to their campus, what words of advice would you offer to other schools that are thinking about going paperless, in particular with Sign?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And, I think what worked really well for us was picking an area that we had the most critical need and getting started with that. So, that helps you to establish your process about how you're going to onboard other groups and other use cases. And so that was very helpful, and it gave us a lot of confidence with the product. People who maybe hadn't been exposed to the evolution of Adobe Sign and where it stood, it gave them a lot of comfort to be able to see how quick and easy it was to be able to use. And then we were able to really use a train-the-trainer approach to roll this out to other areas. And the use cases on our campus are limitless at this stage. a department can define a specific need that they have, and while we support them, they're able to do a lot of the work themselves to get things up and running and automated.
Great. Great. Well, thank you so much, Dwayne. I think this has been a really illuminating conversation. I really appreciate your time and your partnership so much. To the audience, we do, again, have time reserved for Q&A, so if you have specific questions for Dwayne, go ahead and drop it in the chat, and I think that Dwayne has been kind enough to potentially we can reach out to him afterwards, maybe, if there are any pointed questions. So thank you, Dwayne.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so I think I have a poll coming up here, Phil, if you can pop that up. So we'll put this up. So before we go over to Dan with the demos, just a couple more questions here. Looks like the answers are flowing in. So you can see that they're, yeah, interesting. And just so you know, we're going to be sending out, I think, a recap, so we'll be able to share results, I believe, of the poll with us after the fact, just in case there's curiosity. But we can see that there's a good mix, both in terms of Adobe solutions that are currently used as well as other digital solutions that are used right now. For anyone who's dropping in other, just because I'm curious, if you wouldn't mind, feel free to drop in the other solutions that you use, in addition to HelloSign and PandaDoc and DocuSign that are listed here. All right. I'm going to go ahead and move us on just for the sake of time over and so that we have enough time for Q&A. So I'm going to introduce my colleague Dan, and he's going to show you a couple of simple workflows just to show you how easy it is to use Adobe Sign. And I think this might answer some of the questions that are popping in the chat too, just in terms of number of signatures and workflow and routing as well.
Yeah, it's good to be here with everybody. Thanks, Sarah, for the introduction. My name is Dan Armstrong. I come from education. I taught at university and high school. So here at Adobe, I help institutions stand up solutions, and we've been working with digital signature now for a long time to help folks. So I appreciated everything we've said so far today. It's been great, and I think the key takeaway for me so far has been that here at Adobe, we've been doing digital processes for documents for decades, and we've got your back, and we just want to help support your organization move forward in whatever positive way we can. So today, we're going to take a look at this particular document. I'm in Microsoft Word for right now, and this is a offer letter that's going out to Mr. Shingleton, and so we have some information, and what I need is I just need him to sign this offer letter. And so inside Word here, I could take care of this. I have my Creative Cloud is integrated here, but also I could just come here to sign, and I would be able to send this out right here from within Word. But because of today's demo, I want to show you kind of like the sign interface. But I just wanted you to see that it's completed, and right here I could simply just put in the email address and hit continue, and this document could be sent for signature. But today I'm going to take you through like the sign interface that's web-based, so you can kind of see what this looks like. So if in this first example, we're going to work with this offer letter through a couple things, but this first example, I just want to keep it simple. So we're just going to request the signature and enter the person's email address here. And I'm just going to go pick up this file that's completed. So if the document was done and I didn't need to add anything, and all I needed to do was add a signature to this, this is going to verify it via email. This is the message that's going to go out. My file's connected. It's a Word doc. Could be a Google doc. It could be anything. And when I hit next to preview this, Sign is going to convert this into a PDF, and it's going to prepare it to go out for an electronic signature. And so here's my letter. It's ready to go, and I see a lot of people are using either our creative tools or Acrobat. This is very similar feeling to Acrobat. It's quite a bit simpler, but over here on the right are all my fields that I can use. We'll look at some of those later, but for now, I'm just going to grab the signature, kind of hover it over the line. It's going to snap where it belongs. If I had multiple people here, I would be able to click this drop down and choose, who's signing where, and we'll look at some of those options in this next section. But for now, that's all I have to do is drop that signature and hit send. And so now it's been completed. So it's off. It's now sent it, and the transaction is underway. So if I look at this in like an email context, we'll give this just a minute. And here is my offer letter email that's gone out. Right here is my logo that's been branded, so they know it's coming from the right place. And when I click review and sign, it's going to take me out. You'll see up here, this is my Altura test. So this is my university's subdomain here going on where they can publish this out. And all they've got to do is click the box to sign it. If they've ever signed before, it will remember their preferences. And if they would like to change it, they have the options to type it or draw it. It can even send it out to their mobile so they can actually sign on their mobile device and put that signature in there. But this is platform agnostic. It just runs in the web. Doesn't really matter what device they're using. So once they click and sign that, what that's going to do is that is now a completed verified legal document. And so that document is going to get sealed up and secured, so it can't be changed, right? We're not going to change documents after people have signed them. That would be, not a good thing. So yeah, this is where we can come in and download, that PDF, and we have this completed document. It's sealed, so we're going to make sure that this doesn't get modified or changed, once people sign it. So I want to take you in and show you a little bit about how these are built. All right, like if you wanted to build out a template, let's say, where people are going to reuse a form over and over, I just want to give you a brief overview of what that would look like. In this case, I have a birth certificate affidavit to verify, the student and whatnot here. And if I wanted to fill in this form, let me go back here. Sorry, my crash of my screen really threw me off there. I apologize, folks. Okay, there we go. So with this document here, I've got these fields that need filled in. And of course over here, I can bring in like text boxes and radio buttons and images, and I can put in file attachments, information about the signer. But I really would like to get kind of a head start on this without just having to drag all of that out. And so we've built in some of our AI technology into this, where this is seeing the document and it's saying that it can see form fields. And so if I can just click on that, it will then populate those boxes for me. And then I can modify and assign those out as I want to just by double clicking. So we have options here for conditions. So show this field, when the following is true. So we can assign out different, if this field gets checked, then I want this information to appear. The appearance of it, we can do validation for all of those if we want to calculate this. And of course, who is assigned to, do we want to pre-fill that field, or is it going to go out to a different person? So fully customizable here for wherever you might need, and you just drag those fields from the side. So if you want a signature field to be added, you could just drag it out and work with it there. So I share that just to kind of show you how a template can be built. Because what we're going to do now is I'm going to take that offer letter we had, for example. I'll show you the template for it. So in this template, what I've got is I have set up some fields here where these are blank, and these fields have a name. So this is named, position, and the time of the position, the gross salary. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of our tools called GigaSign to populate this letter and add the signature and send it out to all the recipients. So the use case here being, let's say, we needed to renew employee contracts, and we needed to fill these things in. And what we have to populate this is this CSV file here, where we have an email address, a message that we're going to include, the agreement number, and then over here are my fields that are going to get populated. So job title, position length, salary, vacation days. So I can just build this CSV file out fairly quickly. And then using GigaSign over here, what GigaSign will let me do is it will let me take that CSV value with those fields, and then I can go to my library where I have that template for the offer letter, and it's going to populate all the recipients that this needs to go to, and it's going to use that information to fill in this offer letter. So when I click send, it's going to go ahead and send both of those documents out because I had 2 people listed. And inside of my experience as the end user, when I go over to my email, I have been requested to sign this offer letter now. And again, it's branded with the logo, everything's good. And when I review this, it'll run any device just like the other one. And we can see that all the fields have been filled in for me. Similar to what you might do with a mail merge today when you email those out, except this has now gone to every recipient. So if you had 600 people that needed to sign their contracts, you just sent their contracts in 4 or 5 minutes. And all I have to do is click and sign, and mine is done. So you've now gotten my contract back saying that looks fine. And over here inside of GigaSign, I can come and pull a report for that was sent. So if I right click and I do an update status, that's going to talk to Adobe Sign and say, you know, what does that look like? And I can download the signed ones, I can get a full report, or I can send reminders out to people for what needs to happen. And I can see kind of the details that, you know, this one is checked, it's completed, and so forth. So between just sending for signature inside of Sign, which is fairly simple to just throw a signature on the page, or if you need a template, we have web forms and workflows that you can work with, along with things like GigaSign to help you with mass email. So between all of those things, we've got you covered with Adobe Sign, and we can help you with your use case. And so we just like to turn it back over here to Sarah, and we'll take some questions. And really, you know, we've been doing this a long time here at Adobe, and we're just here to help. And with a lot of the setup you already probably have with, you know, other creative products, the turnaround time to implement this is fairly simple. Yeah, so Sarah, we'll take it back over to you, and we can take some questions for the last section of this.
Great. But I'm going to flow into questions very quickly. I'm going to spend about 1 second covering off on one slide that just kind of offers up some other resources and some follow-ups, and then we'll reserve the remaining 10 minutes or so for questions. I think the one question that I wanted to cover off on, and maybe Dan, you can take this since you've been answering this for a lot of people individually in the chat. I know that there's a lot of questions just about workflows and about workflows, signing order, and templates. So if you're able to kind of speak a few words to that, let's go there, and then maybe we can shift to some of the questions.
Yeah. So, and we didn't have time today to show it, but we do have an advanced workflow designer. You know, example use case there is if you have, you know, a couple people that need to sign, it doesn't really matter what order, and then you have, you know, someone that has to sign after they do, plus like an approver. You can map that all out in kind of a visual interface, and you can say, you know, who gets copied on those emails, where do those go, and you can use templates inside of that workflow, so you can really pin down the end user that's signing, that's sending it out. You know, in this case, you know, if we're sending out documents, we can really set it up so that there's not a lot of human error that can happen with those workflows. So there's just so many things that can be done with it. It's hard to kind of cover all of them in this kind of setting. But yes, we have a workflow, and you can designate approvers, signers, and in any order or at the same time.
Great, thank you. And it happened a couple times, but I just dropped into the chat trying to see if it went to everybody. We'll make sure that it gets out, but I did drop in a link over to the workflow designer signature on our help desk session that can kind of give everyone a video and a taste of how that works.
Great.
All right. Should we shift over to the questions? I think maybe some of the questions that we have for Dwayne.
Sure. Sarah, would you like me to ask them? There were
Yeah,
two
that would be
questions
great,
for
Lori.
Dwayne. Okay. Hey, Dwayne. How many people on your campus are using Adobe Sign?
So we have pretty broad utilization. I don't have the specific numbers in front of me, but in terms of the number of departments that we've set up, it's a pretty large base. I'll see if I can get that number before we're done with this call.
Okay, and then an add-on question around your university is if you have a form governance committee to ensure there are look and feel similarities across the school or campuses.
Yeah, so it somewhat relates to that previous question in that we assign administrator roles. And in the administrator roles for setting up workflows, we actually do an onboarding process where we do some training for them. We talk about expectations, how to use it, etc. Once someone has gone through that training, then while we have a support mechanism in place, we don't have a formal governance process. So they are pretty free to use the solution within the constraints that we've set.
Okay, and then related to your university, what ERP do you use, and is Sign integrated with the ERP?
So we are a Banner school. We use the Banner ERP. We do not have Adobe Sign integrated with Banner at this time. In some of our other systems, so we use the Jaeger procurement system, used to be SciQuest. We do have integrations there with Contract Manager. The sponsored project system that I mentioned to y'all earlier, that we don't have the integration yet, but we expect to have it in the very near future, is Huron Click. So that's the solution that we are using there.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dwayne. We have a couple more minutes, so I'm going to turn to the general questions about Adobe Sign. And I guess this would be for Dan. Dan, how do you verify the authenticity of the person signing the document?
Yeah, so we have a few options on that. The primary way that that's done is via email verification. So the documents are sent to email, and so they have to be accessed via the person who owns that email account to go through signature. So that's kind of the minimal barrier to provide like a legally binding document. There are, more robust ways that you can protect that if you're, concerned about the person's identity. Things like passwords, and we have, other identity certification options where, yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much how we do it, is with email.
Okay. Okay, great. I know there were a bunch of questions about workflows, but there was also questions around web forms. Can you touch on web forms?
I can take care of that.
How that works? That would be
great.
great.
So really we try to make sure we have a solution for, each scenario. So in the scenarios I showed, we knew who the documents were going to, and when we deal with a web form, we're dealing with a general use form that we don't necessarily know who will be signing it. And so we can publish that right from Sign. We can host it for you. You can make it available on your own hosting service. But within a few moments, you can have your own web form up and running and just provide people a link to fill it out. So it will send them an email to have them verify that that's actually them before it completes the signature. But they can complete that all through the web browser and then just verify that email. So it's a great process. It's really nice.
All right,
Okay,
maybe Lori, we do one more question. Yeah.
I was going to say, well, we have time for one more question. So someone asked about Sign being able to mask certain sensitive information on a form. So in other words, like some of the information will be hidden from individuals in the workflow that don't need to see it.
Yeah, and we not only can we do that within like a form, but we have the option too, like if, let's say you were sending something for approval and you had internal documentation to show like, yes, it's okay to do this, the internal documentation can be attached to the signature process and only the people you specify will be able to see it. So you can attach documents along with signatures that are going out with specific view availability as well. So, you know, depending on the use case there, I mean, you would set that up within your template. For example, if you had a social security number field, then there's, you know, additional security you can add when you build the template for that particular field.
Okay, great. Sarah, do you want to close?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. And we will be following up potentially with some resources that can help cover off on some of these questions as well. Just a quick note on some next steps. We're going to be sharing some resources that'll make for some good follow-up. One of them is a Forrester study that we did recently that kind of looks at the state of document digitization and HED. We also have a similar companion piece that focuses specifically on K-12. So if you're working on making the business case around campus, these are pieces that you can use to help support that. We're also going to send you over the University of New Mexico full story, just so if you want more details about what Dwayne has spoken to today, you can take a peek at that. And then we have an interesting case study for the K-12 audience coming over from France, actually. It provides and articulates the value from the perspective of a school principal of working with Sign. As I had mentioned, we also have a couple of additional webinars coming up, March 10th on integrations, April 14th on rollout and onboarding. And if you want more information or custom demos, please contact your rep or get in touch with us to set anything up. Obviously, we are here to help and address anything you need. So it's the top of the hour. Really appreciate everyone from joining. Thank you so much. Oh, and one final note. Dwayne mentioned that they have 1,100 users right now working on the Sign platform on their campus, which is pretty awesome. So thank you, everybody, for your time.